podcast or shows or anything?
Right. I'm speaking to this camera? Okay. Did you just... We ready?
Yeah.
All right. Hi, I'm Ron Kuby. Thank you all who have turned out here today. Everybody remember it's a pandemic, and even though we're the cool kids, we still get sick. So try to stay 6 feet apart to the extent you possibly can, and certainly stay 6 feet away from me because I've taken off my mask and I'm spewing droplets. Okay, everybody comfortably numb? All right, somebody got the joke. Right? It's a tough room. Today is the 500th day of Stephen Donziger's home confinement. And one of the judges presiding over his case, Judge Loretta Preska, has said that Stephen Donziger is being treated like any other pretrial defendant. Not only is that provably and demonstrably untrue, the opposite is true. There has never been a misdemeanor defendant in the entire history of American misdemeanors who's been held on home confinement for even as much as a day, let alone 500 days. What's going on here has a very clear effect. The effect is to incapacitate Stephen, to impoverish Stephen, to punish Stephen, and most important, to prevent Stephen from engaging in the legal, political work he needs to engage in to enforce the Chevron judgment around the world where it can be enforced. And that's not even the oddest thing about this case. So you may ask yourselves, how did we get here? And I just want to go very briefly through how it is we came to be assembled. Judge Lewis Kaplan, a federal judge who, before he ascended to the bench, worked for Brown and Williams Tobacco Company, was the one who did Chevron's bidding in the Ecuador case. Judge Kaplan then brought 6 charges of criminal contempt against Stephen Donziger. So Judge Kaplan was the so-called victim in the case. He was also the one that brought the charges. Then Judge Kaplan decided, well, federal government, we want you to prosecute this case. And he went to the Justice Department, and went to the Southern District prosecutors, and they said, no, we don't have the resources to pursue this case. This is the Trump administration's Justice Department. When have they ever lacked the resources to do something they wanted to do? This case just wasn't worth it, even to the federal government. So what Judge Kaplan then did was he appointed a team of private, for-profit prosecutors from a law firm with deep ties to the oil industry and the fossil fuel industry, who had previously represented Chevron, and gave them a pipeline, if you will, into an unlimited number of taxpayer dollars for the purposes of prosecuting Stephen Donziger. Then, Judge Kaplan handpicked the judge to actually preside over the case. Judge Loretta Preska, a high-ranking member of the Federalist Society. But just in case things didn't work out right, Judge Kaplan did not remove himself from the case. He remains a judge on the case in some sort of shadow capacity. So Judge Kaplan here is the victim, the guy that brings the charges, the guy that picks the prosecutors, the guy that picks the judge, and also the judge. So Stephen Donziger is getting twice the number of judges and none of the actual justice. In the end, Kaplan, Preska, the private for-profit prosecutors, the oil industry law firms that dispatch attorneys to harass people like the flying monkeys in The Wizard of Oz, they are all, dare I say it, bricks in the wall. And that wall is being torn down every day. Climate activists around the world are rising up, and the polluters will be made to pay. And Stephen Donziger will be free. Stephen!
Thank you so much, Ron. Can people hear me?
Yeah!
I cannot believe that I have to talk from 7 floors up on the 500th day of my pension. But I want to thank everybody for coming today. It's sort of hard to explain. People say, like, how do you deal with this? The way I and my family deals with this is through solidarity of people like each of you and so many others in this country and around the world who give a damn about the people of Ecuador, about environmental justice, about corporate accountability, and about lawyers. I am a lawyer. I believe I am a successful human rights lawyer. A team that I was a part of won a historic judgment against Chevron. What is happening to me is a sign of our success. This is a corporate playbook that is designed really by Chevron and the entire fossil fuel industry to silence advocacy, to hold the industry accountable for pollution, and to stop the kind of work that is needed to save our planet. So I want to just also urge people to remember the people in Ecuador. I've been to Ecuador many, many times over the years, who are suffering because of the billions of gallons of toxic waste that Chevron has dumped onto their ancestral land. That is why I believe I am in this apartment for 500 days, without trial. When there is nobody, as far as we can tell, who has ever been charged with this offense, this criminal contempt offense, for which I am innocent, who's ever been held for even 1 day pre-trial, and I've been here 500 days. So I want to thank everybody. If I could get down there, and I might be able to get down toward the end, I would hug each of you going in this COVID situation. But thank you so much. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Roger Waters. Thank you, James Bernard, Sarah Lee Whitson, Maria Ordonez, and everyone else for coming and speaking out on behalf of the people of Ecuador and their lawyers, so we can hopefully continue to be free in our society, be able to advocate, to be able to obtain justice. Thank you so, so much. Love all of you.
Thank you. Everybody gather around.
Oi! That picture says it all. You leaning out of your effing window up there, rather than being down here with your friends. I thought that I might say a few words about our friend Kaplan, Louis A. Kaplan, and his good bosom pal, Loretta Preska, but Ruby said enough about them, so I'm going to leave them be. You've been to Ecuador many times. I came with you once. I remember turning to my missus as we were driving through the rain on that day to go and look at the oil pits, and I said to her, I don't know how much money Chevron made and Texaco made out of drilling for oil here, but from the look of this place, not a lot of it filtered through to the people who've lived here for the last few thousand years. And you know, it wasn't a funny remark to make, but it was the truth. Nothing ever filters through to the people whose land it is that we white settlers go in and destroy under their feet. So I have that to say. I was thinking about this a few minutes ago in the car, and I was thinking I should be wearing one of those red hats with MA something on it, and I thought maybe Malala, which would stand for Make America Law-Abiding Again. Because as we know, the United States does not abide by any international law. The United States isn't even a signatory to the Treaty of Rome. I won't go down that avenue, otherwise I would be standing here this afternoon at tea time. Where else do I want to go? I've been doing this with Stephen now for the last 6 or 7 years, since the totally corrupt kangaroo court that was called the RICO trial, suggesting that this man was guilty of fraud, that he wrote the judgment in Ecuador that gave Chevron Corporation instructions to pay $18 billion in reparation and damages to the 30,000 Ecuadorian rainforest dwellers that this man, staring out of his window on the 7th floor, has represented for the last 21 years. I'm probably running out of time. Do you know what I'm going to do? Because I put this in my pocket. I found this on my desk this morning. And it's a poem I wrote in 2004 when G.W. Bush was elected for the 2nd time. I'm just going to read it because it's still as pertinent to today as it was then. It goes like this. Why cannot the good prevail? Here in America, there is at heart a people just and true, open sometimes to the point of ridicule, good neighbours to rebuild the barn, the doctor's note of Western legend carried forth beyond the grave. I knew your pa, enough. In caucuses across the land, deliberate they'll always stand. Defenders of the Rosenbergs, symbolic of that yearning to be better than before. They never will give up their brother to the grocer's cold machine. Belt welts livid from the strong arm of the law. On campuses, in boardrooms over giving thanks and pumpkin pie, on hustings in committee rooms, whenever tyrants loomed, we always held in our esteem the ones who hold on to the dream, unflinching while the bullies pose and fiddle on the hill. Has commerce so reduced the free that blinded like a tot, contaminated by the dog shit in the grass, we blunder, slaves to humbug and this current dynasty? No, beyond the grip of trade, the young strain beautiful and proud, the hoarfrost breath of new blood needs but nudges from the old forgotten guard to scale the moral high grounds of the crowd. All strength to you. Oi! Love you, brother. Right, Sarah, you're up.
Sarah Lee. Hi. Thank you. Thanks. Hey there, Stephen. I just wanted to say a few words about Steve. I've been calling him Big Steve for about 30 years now. When I met Stephen back in law school, I think it was 1989 or 1990. And we called Steve Big Steve, not because he's actually quite big and tall and towers over us, but because he's always been such a big personality, a bigger than life personality, whose commitment to justice, whose commitment to human rights has now lasted several decades. I am shocked, I am completely stunned that my own government is persecuting Stephen Donziger, who is in fact one of our country's great human rights activists. I first met Steve in law school when we were trying to do a human rights investigation in Iraq to investigate America's bombardment of Iraq in the first Gulf War. And Stephen and I traveled to Iraq together. We slept on the floors of hospitals together. We traveled in areas littered with munitions and were able to capture the true story about what Iraqi people suffered under American bombardment. Stephen's commitment to social justice, Stephen's commitment to human rights for people that the rest of the world, particularly our country, would rather ignore, has lasted and persevered for these decades. While many, if not most of his classmates left law school to pursue lucrative careers in industry, on Wall Street, working for some of the very same corporations that Stephen is now pursuing, Stephen has always remained true as a social justice warrior. And I think the reason why the persecution against Stephen has been so extreme, so severe, so relentless, is because he is relentless, he is fearless, and he is willing to go mano a mano with these horrendous abusers. I've been working with Stephen since the very first days when we thought about what we should do about this unbelievable oil dumping that was happening at the hands of Texaco and then its new parent Chevron in Ecuador. Stephen returned to Ecuador time after time on very, very difficult missions, on very long and challenging circumstances, probably, I would guess, 100 trips to Ecuador. And while others might have moved on from the case and looked elsewhere, Stephen has stayed with this case when it might have been much more convenient for him, much safer for him to move on. But Stephen refuses to look away, and he insists, and he's latched on to these abusers with ferocity that is what is terrifying Chevron and, most significantly, corrupting our justice system. As was just noted, this is an unprecedented prosecution of an American lawyer to be detained under house arrest for a civil misdemeanor charge 500 days. I work in the Middle East and North Africa. This is some of the worst abuse that we investigate and document by the judiciary of Egypt, by the judiciary of Saudi Arabia, and their kangaroo courts and their kangaroo trials. This is what our own State Department condemns when it happens in Egypt, when it happens in Saudi Arabia, when it happens in Syria. And yet here we are in our own country, in our own city, watching a judge literally take the law into his own hands, finding some way to prosecute him when our own official prosecutors have refused to do this. This is a gross miscarriage of justice. And even if you don't care about Ecuador, even if you don't care about human rights, this is something that should scare all of us. If an activist like Stephen Donziger can end up persecuted in his home, under house arrest for 500 days, all of the lawyers in America should be very afraid. You think this won't happen to you, but this is the start of something terrifying, and I'm very grateful you're all out here to challenge this and make sure that this corruption of the American judiciary is ended and stopped immediately. Thank you. James?
Hey. Thank you so much for that. Love you.
My name is James Bernard. I'm going to keep my mask on because I might get excited. I've known Stephen for 30 years. Stephen's one of my best friends in the entire world. Stephen and I first met, in law school when we were second year. It's kind of falls in line with who he is that we met at a protest after they cut the public interest law office our second year. And after that, Stephen and I did something that is just ridiculous when you think about it. Phone every night for 2 hours every night. Now what we talked about, I don't even know, when we're in school and he's right down the street. But we talked about our love for the law. And we talked about how the law is about stories, right? It's not about rules and regulations, but every lawsuit has a story behind it. And every lawsuit has real people behind it. So it's so not surprising to see how Stephen has been contributing to our world. You know, there's a lightness about Stephen that people may not know if you don't know him personally. You know, when we talk on the phone, when we've talked over the years, people think we have these intense political conversations, but we talk about everything else but that. And we laugh a lot. But what we've learned in this country is that when you do have that kind of light about you, when you are a light, they extinguish you in different ways. It's not hyperbole to think that this is what happens when you run up against the US government, when you run up against big corporations, big oil. Right after Trump got elected, the New Yorker wrote a piece about fascism, okay? Fascism doesn't happen like overnight. Fascism is a process, okay? Things like this start happening. We start accepting things like that. Madeleine Albright wrote a book about fascism, and it was more historical analysis or whatever, but her last chapter, she said, fascism in America is gonna look American. It's going to be wrapped up in a flag, right? It's going to be triggered by the most American of all things, oil, big corporations. That's what's happening. We have to understand what's happening in a larger context. Stephen, I love you.
Yeah. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Maria Ordonez, and I am a candidate for City Council in District 7. I'm also a lifelong resident of West Harlem, and I'm a daughter of Ecuadorian immigrants. And I'm here standing with Steve Donziger because we need to stand for justice, for our democracy, and we need to stand for environmental justice. When I first learned about Steven's story, I was amazed and I was inspired by what he has done for human rights and for the people, indigenous populations of Ecuador, and for the environment of Ecuador. And, you know, we need more people like Steven. But unfortunately, what has happened is injustice. The Chevron and the multimillionaires behind that company and corporations and industries and corporate interests have—
And the media
have been against Steven Donziger for the work that he's done because they're against human rights and they're against our people and against indigenous populations. I have traveled to Ecuador many times. My parents are from Ecuador, and I've gone to these indigenous areas. I've gone to La Sierra, Riobamba, Quito, Guayaquil, and what I've seen is that we need to protect the environment, not just in the United States, but in other countries. We need to protect our world. And that is what Steven Donziger did. And that is what he did with his child. And this is not just about one person. This is about free speech. This is about democracy. We just got Trump out of the White House. And now we need to make sure that everyone has the right to free speech, that we all have the right to democracy. And that starts now. That starts with these fights. That starts here in 104 Ben Broadway with Steven Donziger. So I am here to urge all of you to take action. Not just show up, but take action. And that means, you know, we are together with a bunch of environmental NGOs and human rights organizations, and we have partnered with groups like Our Revolution and the Movement for a People's Party. And we are demanding that Congress intervene in the unlawful home detention of the human rights lawyer that we're fighting for, Steven Donziger. And we want everyone to join the call for Congressman Nadler, and who is the chair of the House Judiciary Committee, to investigate the matter immediately. These acts against Steven have created a chilling effect for others who stand up for defense of civil society in the face of environmental destruction. So it is time for Congress to get involved because we're seeing that the manipulation of our courts and justice system by the fossil fuel industry is wrong and is harming our society. So we can take action now by going to makechevroncleanup.com or go to ourrev.us/freedonziger and join tens of thousands of people who have already raised their voices in support, because the movement for climate justice is growing daily. And it is critical that we fight against the people who are stopping us, because this is why we need climate justice now, and we need to free Steven now. Free Steven now! 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 Free Steven now!
Come down!
Call Jerry Nadler today.
Yes, call him today.
Climate justice now!
Climate justice now!
now!
Climate justice now! Climate justice now!
Climate justice now! Climate justice now! Climate justice now! Climate justice now! Climate justice now!
Climate justice now!
Climate justice now! Free Stephen now!
Free Stephen now!
Free Stephen now! Free Stephen now! Free Stephen now!
Free Stephen now! Free Stephen now! Free Stephen now! Free Stephen now! Free Stephen now!
Free Stephen now!
Free Stephen now! I'm his sister, so I can do that.
And I'm his cousin, so I can do it.
Raja, do you have any words as we're hoping that Stephen will come down? Any final thoughts?
What? Stephen, is he going to defy the law?
We think he's going to defy the law.
It looks like he is.
Hey, Steve! Stephen! He's on his way. He must be on his way down. Get your ass down here. We need you. We need leading. We need... Look where I am. Maybe he's on his way down.
Yeah. Let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, send Chevron out the door. 1, 2, 3, 4, send Chevron out the door. 1, 2, 3, 4, send Chevron out the door.
1, 2, 3, 4, send Chevron out the door.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hey, my guy!
Good to see you. Right over here, Stephen.
Stephen, you have exactly 14 minutes. Back up there. Otherwise, you turn into a pumpkin.
Talk to the people,
I am so moved by this display of solidarity. And also for all the speakers, Roger, my good friend, and Sarah Lee and James from law school. We've known each other over 30 years. My family, my wife Laura, and my sister, whoever, Susan, and brother-in-law David, and family and friends. The most bizarre thing about this experience is I feel like it strengthened the movement to get justice for the Ecuadorians, as well as the movement to get environmental justice in the world.
Yes.
Yes, it's been an ordeal. And Maria, thank you so much. Those are beautiful words. Yes, it's been a personal ordeal for me and my family, and obviously those who care about us, to sit up there for 500 days. I want to acknowledge that there are so many lawyers and other advocates around the world who have it so much worse than I do, but it doesn't change the fact that this hurts. It hurts on a number of levels. I mean, there's the deprivation of freedom, yeah, but it really hurts knowing the people you care about in Ecuador, that you worked as a professional to help for so many years, have been deprived of really their main lawyer. There are other lawyers working on this. This case will continue with or without me. I want to be clear about that. But it hurts knowing that I have been, to some degree, taken off the playing field, unable to meet with my clients, and unable personally to continue this advocacy. But the case goes on, and what really has ended up happening, if I look at this thing analytically, is literally thousands of people have stepped up in response to this attack on me and my clients, because that's what it really is, to join forces to hold Chevron accountable. It's really amazing. I mean, there are literally 24,000 people who have sent emails to Jerry Nadler, who, by the way, needs to get off his behind and do something about this.
Yes.
Because, you know, the crazy thing is, you know, in the U.S. Congress, there's all sorts of people worried about human rights abuses all over the world, okay? There's a human rights abuse taking place right here in Manhattan on the Upper West Side, and they don't even show up to say anything about it.
Because they're full of shit.
Okay? So, you know, I became convinced about 2 months after I got charged by Judge Kaplan that the only possible way out of this was to speak out, was to organize, was to do it the old-fashioned way. Okay, to have a rally on the damn sidewalk.
Yeah.
Okay, to do it this way. And do it also obviously through social media platforms. And I cannot tell you how successful it's been as my physical world has shrunk. The spiritual world and the online world has expanded by multiples of thousands. I mean, it's just incredible, isn't it?
Woo!
And once I get through this, and we are in the process of getting through it, today being a good example, I have no doubt that Chevron, which has already been held accountable because we won the case. We won the case. The people of Ecuador beat Chevron in court and held the company accountable. They will be paying this judgment such that thousands of indigenous peoples and rural communities, many of them my friends, people I work with for years and years and years, are going to be able to have a clean environment. And thousands of lives will be saved. And that's what this is ultimately about. But you know, it's also about, obviously, attacks on all of us. Okay? All of us are implicated when a lawyer is silenced by the federal judiciary. Okay, it's wrong. And it's never happened like this here in this country before. You know, I was able to hear a little bit of what James said, but, you know, I don't want this to be the canary in the coal mine for something much worse. We have to stop it now.
Yeah.
Now. Okay? So thank you. The talks were great. The energy is awesome. And this is the kind of solidarity that people in my position, my unfortunate position, need to grow, get stronger, and get through this. And man, we're going to get through this. Thank you so much.